everyone, it's Melanie of our Studio 320, and this week I have this cute little end table that belongs to my sister, and she would like me to bring it back to life. It is solid wood. I am going to try and expose as much of the wood as possible while maybe bringing some interest by painting some of it. You just never know what I'm going to do. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment and press that red button. You can follow me on Instagram and you can find me on Etsy, where I am selling some of my past projects that I've done right here on my channel. All of those links can be found in the description box below, along with all of the materials I used this week. Stick around. You'll notice that I'm changing the filters on my respirator because I'm going to be sanding. I'm using my round pink filters. They're kind of soft for dust particles. And this piece, I didn't think it would be so hard to sand it because it seemed like it was going to sand pretty easily. So I started with an 80 grit and then I changed to a 60 grit. And then I thought, well, maybe my container, my little catch-all is full. So you see me, you twist it off, and sure enough, it was clogged. So this thing is so hard to take off, but I got it off, and look at that, it's full. And I'm sure that when it's full, it probably is, it doesn't perform as well as it would if it were empty. So that did help, although I did change to a 60 grit. Now here you can see I'm showing you there's a little bit of space there. Over the years, it just has separated. So I used a rubber mallet. You do not want to use a hammer. Use something that's not going to damage the wood, just to get it all back together again. Every time I see a chair or a table with spindles, I kind of cringe because they are difficult to sand. And I have a couple of tools. I have this Ryobi cat. I actually like to call it a mouse because it looks like a mouse you use for the computer. It does a pretty good job because it has a point on it, but it's still wide in the middle. So it's still going to give me a little bit of trouble. It's not going to be completely efficient. I'm using my random orbital sander for most of it, and even in between I carefully sanded in between, but you have to be careful with that because if you tilt the sander one way or another, it's going to create a groove. So I'm using my 60 grit sponge sander, and what's great about that is it's squishy. If you want to know more about the tools I use, you can check out my video on 10 essential tools for flipping furniture. That's a good video. Okay, I like the sponge sander because you can grip it, you can squeeze it, and you can mold it to what you're sanding. This is my substitution for a festool or a surf prep, which really isn't anything like it. But the concept is the same. It's a sanding sponge, but mine isn't electric and it takes a lot longer. Okay, I know. What is she doing? Stripping. She just spent all that time sanding. Well, there was some stain in the wood grain and I wanted to try and get it out. And if you've watched my videos before, I'm a broken record. I hate stripper. It's toxic and it creates so much waste with all of the materials you use to get it back off again. And then you have the material itself that you've scraped off. So yeah, yuck. But sometimes you need to. And then you have to neutralize it with the mineral spirits. And that's a really important step. And I had to do it a couple times around the spindles because the stripper got stuck underneath the spindle. So you will see me do that as well. Okay, the saran wrap, yes, it's just a habit of putting it over it so that it doesn't dry, but I probably didn't need to, so there you go, I created more waste. Good morning. It's actually Wednesday. I started this little project on Monday, but we've had some family in town and I just got back from a very long vacation and I'm having a little trouble getting back in the groove. But I wanted to update you on my little end table here. So I'm going to show you right here. I'm working on the legs and I am using a 60 grit sanding sponge. I like to call them sanding blocks, but it's actually a sponge. The reason I'm hand sanding this is because I don't have, this is what I have that I sand with. And as you can see, doesn't quite work on spindly legs. So I am going to paint them, but this stain is very old and this wood is very dry. So when I'm sanding it, it comes off pretty easily. And if I leave that behind, that could be a problem. So I'm just a little bit anal about stuff like that. I want to get rid of that and have a nice smooth surface to paint on, which I think is a pretty normal thing to want. And then the top here, I did a little stripping yesterday, so I'm going to do a little more sanding just because the surface was pretty nice, except that I could see some of the stain was embedded into the grain, and because I'm going to leave it a natural finish, I want to make sure that this is as good as I can get it. So this is residual stuff from the stripper. So I neutralized it yesterday with the mineral spirits. So it's good. I just need to sand it again. This is the color I'm using. This is Mojave Brown by Melange. Isn't that pretty? It's very dear to my heart now because where I went on vacation was Utah, and this color reminds me of the dirt that literally got in everything we owned in our camper and our clothes, and that's totally fine with me because if you haven't been to Utah, oh my gosh, you gotta go. Zion, Arches, Bryce, Canyonlands, Dinosaur Land, they're all very cool. There's so many national parks there. Check that out. All right, I'm gonna get to work. I just wanted to update you because I hadn't checked in yesterday because I really didn't have anything to report. Let's get to work. Now I'm using a microfiber cloth, which is great for wiping up all of the dust before you paint. This is another one of my sponge sanders, and it's angled on both ends, which is really nice for getting underneath those spindles. I'm using a tack cloth here around those dang spindles because there was a little bit of room there, and actually that's where the citrus strip got stuck. So I ended up using some mineral spirits around the spindles just to be sure, because you want to make sure you get all of that stripper neutralized, or you will have a problem when you're trying to paint. I showed you this color before by Melange. This is the Mojave Brown, and I decided to add some water to this time. I hadn't done that before except in my sprayer, and I realized, okay, so I use it in my sprayer and I like it a lot more that way. So why not just water it down just a little bit? Some of you might cringe, but when it's that thick and it dries quickly, it makes it difficult. And I've had some issues in the past where I go back and brush it again and then I screw it up. So this is just an easier way to do it. This is a round brush by Zibra, and it is specifically made for spindles and table legs, and it works really well. It holds a lot of paint and just gets into all of those little grooves. I'm using my lavender tape here to tape around the spindles. I didn't do that at first, but it was much easier this way. This is my square brush by Zibra, and this one's nice for trim. It just works really well. I decided to paint around the edges of the table because there were some blemishes on the edges and it just didn't look very good. So I decided to paint it and cover that up. Looked much better. After I was finished painting, I used my orbital sander just to touch up the top, any spots that I may have hit with the paint accidentally. So my sister wanted the tops to be light, and I suggested maybe we leave it natural. So I was going to use just a natural stain, which doesn't have any pigment in it. But I found that it darkened the wood a little more than I wanted it to. So it may have been all right once it dried, but I decided to add some white to the natural stain. And then I went back with the white stain and just hit it a little bit more. It gave it kind of a pickling effect. I thought it looked cool. I like it. I hope my sister likes it. So I know you can only see a little bit of the top there. Sorry about that. Sometimes I forget to move the camera because I just get involved in what I'm doing. You'll notice that I got a little bit of stain on the painted surfaces. Not to worry, all you need to do is use a little bit of mineral spirits and just wipe it over there and it takes off the stain and not the paint. So I grabbed my brush for the waxing and it was full of wax. But not to worry, all you need is some mineral spirits. And then I went in and used my Up and Up, which is just like Dawn. You can get it at Target. And I put it in my brush and it just came perfectly clean. So first you use the mineral spirits and it just melts away that wax. And then you use your Up and Up or your Dawn and wash it off and then just rinse it right off. And it's perfectly clean. Now, before you put it in the wax, you want to just shake it out and get that excess water out of the brush. All right, with a clean brush, I love this brush. I wish I could tell you where I got it, but I've had it for a long time. I don't quite know where I got it. I'm going to use a dark wax. It's a brown wax by Behr. It's a nice wax. It goes on really easily, and I just use the brush. Now, I suggest you put some on the brush and then you kind of wipe it off on a cloth. And I hadn't used wax for a while, so I forgot to do that. But no worries, it worked just fine. Well, friends, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think this little guy turned out pretty nice. I think my sister's gonna like it. La la! I am going to be putting a Polycrylic Top Coat by Minwax. It's a clear ultra flat, and I'm going to put it on just the tabletops, but I did use an oil-based stain on these tabletops. Therefore, I need to let it dry at least 48 hours, if not longer, so that I don't risk the polycrylic getting cloudy after I put it on. You can try it before that, but I don't recommend it. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
You can do it.
Smoke up on that butt. Why you won't come down? Always got your head up in the